very exciting times for us. And here we are on another block chat with Denis Petrovcic and Makram Hani. Today we'll be discussing the basics of tokenization, of real estate tokenization. Now, what you will see Dennis and myself do in this session is take it easy in a simplistic manner, and we want to make sure that no jargon is used. It's um, simple details from methodology to terminology to the process of tokenizing real estate, why, how, and what. Um, with me again is Denis Petrovcic. How are you, Denis?
I'm I'm great. I'm
Perfect.
great. Thanks for asking, Makram. How are you?
Amazing. Just amazing. So, tokenization, real estate tokenization. Let's start with real estate, an asset you all know. Yeah?
Yeah.
And real estate can be few types. Real estate can be leasehold, freehold. Let's take a simple approach to that. Real estate has the ability to be used as an asset, to be lived in, to be rented out. Real estate is an asset that you purchase using money or any other form of currency. All of it is money, or you exchange it. And then you have that asset. It represents to you sets of rights. And those rights are generally economic rights and some other rights that derive of that. So, one of the economic rights is the right to use. Now, why is it an economic right? Because the right to use is, the way I think of it, is you paying yourself rent. So, rather than the landlord be somebody else, Dennis, for example, now the landlord is you. Because remember, if you don't pay yourself rent, you're abusing your bank. Your bank, it's you. Makram's bank, Dennis's bank, John's bank. That bank owns the real estate or owns the loan, loaned you the money. Now you've borrowed from two banks, probably from HSBC or any other bank, and your bank. You've borrowed 60, 70, 80%, 50% from HSBC or Barclays or any other bank, and then you've borrowed a portion from your bank. That portion should also be paid for. So when you're paying that bank, HSBC, Barclays, or any other bank, you also need to be paying John's bank or Dennis's bank or Makram's bank, your bank. Now, if you're doing that, it means that you're paying rent regardless if you're living in it or not. If you're not living in it, the owner in you is collecting rent from someone else as a tenant. If you're living in it, you are collecting rent from the tenant you. So the owner in you is collecting rent from the tenant in you. And those are economic rights because there's economic exchange here. Now, again, you have the property, you keep it for a few years, you sell it. It also generates a profit, hopefully, or a loss. But that's economic rights that are being increased or decreased. Cool. That asset, as simple as you know it today, the home you live in, can be tokenized. Now, we described real estate. Let's describe tokens. Dennis, what are tokens? Tell us, please, about the types of tokens and what do we mean by a token and what does a token represent? Because in a simple way.
Sure. So tokens are essentially units that of measurement, let's say, of accounting, units of accounting. And how we create tokens using a blockchain is with a smart contract. So any token you see somewhere show up in a wallet where you hold tokens, right? Um, they are kind of managed, if you will, by code that we call, and that is deployed on a blockchain that we call smart contract. And this essentially means that we can code or create different types of tokens. Some tokens can be managed by one contract, and all of these tokens can represent the same unit of account, so they are interchangeable. And some tokens can be unique, even though they are managed by the same by the same smart contract. They can be different from each other. Now, this is something we call fungibility. So you might see, around you terms like NFTs, which is non-fungible tokens, and something ERC20 or something jargon that represents usually fungible tokens. So fungible tokens are the essence of real estate tokenization, but as well, non-fungible tokens can represent a real estate asset. So,
So just here
yeah,
to clarify something, guys, fungible and non-fungible tokens, as I understand them, and here I don't need to represent someone who doesn't know enough about tokens because I am someone who doesn't know. It's not like I'm imitating that I am someone who doesn't know. I don't know enough about them. Fungible and non-fungible is a non-fungible token is unique in essence, yeah, and its creation and it's what it's called. A fungible token is a token where you have 100,000 of it, for example, as we chose as Blocksquare to represent an asset, but it can have 10, 20, 30, and they're all similar. So each token is similar to the other token. And this is a main differentiator because between non-fungible token and fungible token in how it interacts with the world outside. Okay. And this is why non-fungible tokens are better for some uses. Fungible tokens are better for another type of use. If you want to tokenize a piece of art without fractionalizing it, probably the best way is to use a non-fungible token. If you want to tokenize a piece of art and fractionalize the ownership of the main piece of art, then probably the best use is the fungible token. Dennis will
correct.
tell us more about that, but that's from someone who doesn't understand tokenomics and tokens in general and code and anything technology.
But
Go ahead.
I think you've explained it really well, right? Using on the same real world assets two token types and defining what they bring. When you have a non-fungible token represent something non-fungible in the real world, for instance, a painting, it means that you somehow connect the token with the ownership rights that you talked before, and then you ensure that anytime this token on chain changes ownership, changes control, that this control change impacts the control on the real world asset that is underlying, right? And when you're using this fungible tokens, you usually want to make sure that the asset that's in the real world is kind of fixed under a certain ownership structure, and then these fungible tokens that are owned by the many represent a proportion of this whole asset. So it makes them useful when it comes to large, lumpy asset types, like real estate, for instance, right?
Cool. So now we have this is what tokens are. Now, how do we use them and why do we need to use them? Yeah. Let's discuss it this way. Today, your real estate asset, economic rights, and all rights are represented and registered on a local register. It can be in your county, in your village, in your country, depending if it's in a country centralized or decentralized, or in a region or in a state. Yeah, it's recorded on the register. And to confirm that registration, that record, you have a paper. It can be a green paper, a blue paper, whatever type of paper. In some places, like in Dubai, where I live, the uh, title deed is on chain already. So it's a digital title, and you have you have a paper, but that paper is just a representation of what's digital. You have a QR code, and you have a contract, actually a smart contracts, a code there. Now, this is what your property is registered and recorded with, and this proves you the record. When we talk tokenization, regardless if you're using fractionalization and tokenization or not, because an asset can be represented by one token. Yeah. And this is you not fractionalizing the asset, that's you registering that asset rather than on a local register, on a global register. That can be a public register or a private register. Blockchain is a public register now. And when you put those records in an immutable manner. And immutable is non-changeable, yeah, non-manipulable, probably. Okay, method. In an immutable manner on that register, you can have it all through. Now, a country and city like Dubai, for example, a country like the UAE registers now the record on a private chain. Okay, so it's not on a public blockchain; it's on a private chain. While if you record it today on using the Ethereum smart contracts that we use and using the approach we use as Blocksquare, then that is recorded on a public chain, and it's a global chain, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The main difference between using a public blockchain infrastructure is that it's usually designed like Ethereum. It's usually designed in a way that incentivizes um, nodes to exist, which means nodes are kind of, if you will, record keepers, right? So you have thousands of record keepers that keep the same record of transactions in their storage and relay it to the network. And they are basically verifying each other's states if the end result is the same, and if everybody's holding the same record, and they're incentivized to hold the record, the truthful record. So, on the other side, if you have private blockchain systems, they're usually created in a way where these records are kept by a couple of entities. In the case of Dubai's land registry, that's probably just one single entity, which means that it's a very private, very centralized blockchain. So it means that as soon as that node stops operating or decides to start using a different system, that can be easily done because that system stops to exist. So there's certain risks, obviously, in trusting your own applications, let's say, with non-public blockchains. But that's why we
Now,
use Ethereum, right?
here comes the my thoughts. I, for example, fully trust a government holding such records.
Yes.
Okay, I have full trust in that. I am someone who trusts the system. Okay, for good or for bad, I do trust the system. One of the reasons I trust the system is that because I don't believe we have better methods or better entities to trust, and I not yet have that mindset to be able, similar to Denis, similar to friends and partners of mine in other ventures, they have that type of trust for decentralization in general. I love the idea, I love the theory, and I believe that it works, but I still trust central systems like government systems so much. So, but both of them,
No,
again,
central systems, Makram, here, it's not, I'm not talking about not trusting a government system. Obviously, we trust because we're in the real estate tokenization business, which means that inherently we need to trust
yeah,
underlying
yeah,
government systems,
the registers,
however they're
yeah,
built. I'm just saying that the benefits of a public blockchain is that it has the potential of always existing. It's really hard to take it down because
yeah.
there's always economic incentive for it to exist.
You need to take every single one of them down, every
It-
single node
yes,
down, not
but
only a
even if
single
you
node.
take every node down, there's new nodes that can pop up somewhere
Yeah.
else because the opportunity increases with the decrease of nodes for those who can have re-entered the market. And it's the
We'll
same
not go
for,
further into that because
yeah.
here Dennis starts talking about things I don't understand.
Okay,
So cool.
so stop. Let's stop this. All right.
Exactly. So to keep it simple, and by the way, the guys, here is something that's amazing. Why? Because it's very difficult. One of the best people to talk to about that, and probably we should have a session, is Dennis. Why? He understands the development side, the tech side. He also understands the other side, our world. So he lives between both and he understands both, so he's able to explain it to you. When I want something explained to me now, I send Dennis, let's huddle, and we huddle because it's the best way for me to understand it. He can make he can give enough examples so he understands my thinking and how I think. That's why it's easy. So we'll utilize that from Dennis as much as possible today. So here is when you register an asset ownership on a token. Yet, what you can do with a token is fractionalize and tokenize. In other words, register this asset rather than one token to 100,000 tokens, 50,000 tokens, whatever it is. Now, again, at Blocksquare, we chose to go for 100,000 tokens so that it's unified. Each asset is 100,000 tokens. 100,000 is a number where there's no asset that's bulky enough for people for a token to be ridiculous in value. Generally, when you talk about retail properties, single family homes or multifamily homes units. Okay, so that is you tokenizing and so digitizing and fractionalizing at the same time. So the token represents the asset ownership. Now, how is it secured that way? Dennis, today we want to secure the economic rights, the rights that are in the asset to the token holders. So let's say we create two tokens for an asset. You hold one, I hold one.
Mm.
How can we pass those rights that usually are on a private register that are represented by a deed or a title? How can we pass them on to me and you and make sure that we are protected from an asset from an asset ownership point of view?
Yeah. So there's a couple of methods around, right? And most of those ways, currently at least, involve the asset ownership to be on a legal entity, so a corporate entity, if you will. That might be an LLC, an SPV, or uh, any kind of company type that can own title. And the reason for it is because by doing so, we isolate the ownership from things that happen when a natural person owns real estate. When you as a person own real estate, things can happen in life like death, um, and then inheritance and divorce and you know other types of transfer of rights because of certain events. When it comes on the other side on owning real estate under a company, this is isolated because the only thing subject to this inheritance and divorce is the shares of the company, not but the asset itself is still under the ownership of that company, even though the control of the company maybe changes. So this is quite important because as soon as this is the case, so we have a real estate asset, the title of it under or in ownership of a company, that company can make certain decisions. And in one of those decisions can be to transfer these economic rights that derive from the ownership onto tokens. And this decision can be not only executed on a paper contract, but this paper contract can be hashed, uploaded to the blockchain, if I simplify, right? And this contract is a contract that it's not, the piece of code, smart contract thing. It's a PDF. It's pretty simple. It's a PDF copy of the decision of the shareholders to do something with this asset. In this case, transfer the economic rights. And
And
because
generally, and
registered,
generally, those.
yes,
Go
just
ahead.
one more thing, but because it's registered on the blockchain has this quality of, you know, um, that once you do a transaction, it stays there forever. So this registration is publicly visible for everybody to see, and this this decision um, is uploaded in a way for everybody to access it at any time. It will always be retrievable, which means that it becomes public publicly accessible by anyone who holds tokens of that represent this economic ownership, the economic rights. Um, yes, you wanted to
So
say something.
here, very important point here is that the the document, which is a resolution, it can be a directors, a board resolution, the owners have met and resolved that, can be in general in most authorities registered with the register in that authority. For example, if you hold such a resolution in DIFC, which is Dubai International Financial Center, or ADGM, Abu Dhabi Global Markets, you are able to register that and get a verification on that and then publish that. So that is something that's recordable. But at the same time, to secure the register, to secure that right, we have done something, and we've done it, we're the first to do it, which has not been done in a small country somewhere. It has been done in a country that's part of the European Union. We have notarized that registration, and we have notarized that transaction. How did we do that, Dennis?
So the first part of what we were describing is how do you create um, legally binding tokens. So tokens that once you own them and things that are publicly promised through this contract, the corporate resolution, um, are not being respected, the group of token holders can take legal action against the owner of the asset, the issuer, its representatives, the shareholders, and its directors. Right now, this legal action needs to take place through court, or trying to um,
Yeah, you froze. Okay, now you're back.
somebody was calling.
Yeah.
So where did I freeze?
Yeah, yeah. You said those should be processed through court. So the legal action to process, to grab your rights, to get your rights.
Yes, and
Okay.
this is great in places where the court system really works well, where people tend to respect contracts, where they tend to respect their obligations contractually, and they are not trying to find loopholes in the system, and where courts take less time to execute.
Actually, which is approximately nowhere. But
Exactly.
where it's
Oh.
cheap to sue people, where it's cheap to sue people. That's what I just wanted to say.
But the thing is that, yeah, where it's cheap to sue people,
Sue
nowhere
people.
is cheap to sue. But
The US, it's cheap to sue people, yeah, or the UK, isn't it?
yeah, maybe. But the thing is, what we've achieved with the notarization is that um, all of this that comes with then going to court is taken away or is resolved upfront. Basically, once these rights are notarized, it means that you don't need to take the issuer to court. You can just state that your rights were not respected and force a default, force the collateral, the real estate asset, to be pushed into liquidation by the court.
Or even so, in systems where you need to go to court, you go for processing only. So you go for um, not to prove that you have a right. You don't go to argue your right. You go just to process your right, which is
Exactly.
very important. Which is
Yeah.
very important.
Yes, and you process your right, which means that it takes a couple of minutes basically to be processed in the end, as soon as the court kind of takes it in. But this is much faster, and basically that's how banks enforce their rights that derive from the lending that they engage in, right? The mortgages that they issue. Yeah.
Perfect. So here, guys, it's very important to touch on the last part. So we talked about real estate, we talked about tokens, and here we talked about tokenizing real estate. How can we transmit this value? But then there's very important elements that people think of. How do people who are, let's say, Dennis and myself and 10 others own tokens in a property, how do we all get the rewards? Second, how do we make sure that the property is managed right for us, for us to get the rewards? Three, how do we make sure that we have equal rewards? If Dennis has one token and I have one token, do we have equal rewards, or can Dennis get slightly more? All of those are questions that probably people ask. Let's answer them now. Dennis, let's start with the first, and let's do very fast
Okay.
answers for those. One, do we have similar rights? And
Yes.
or can you have more rights than me?
No. We have
Similar
the
rights.
same set of rights because our tokens that we hold are fungible. Means my tokens are equal to yours.
Perfect. So that's a fungible token. Two, we have the same set of rights. How do we get the funds, the returns distributed to us when
So
it's running, when it's operating?
yes. So um, as long as we are holding the tokens, this record is kept, and this record of us holding the tokens of this property is basically registered on chain, and this data is used to create a transfer of funds when the owner is distributing um, the
So,
proportion
so
or
can we give an example here, which is the students' housing that we currently have tokenized and
yeah.
people vote into? How does it get distributed? Does it get directly to their wallets? Does it go directly to them?
No, we don't distribute it directly to the wallets, but we distribute it to a smart contract. And from that smart contract, the tokens, the wallet that had tokens or has tokens in its ownership has the right to
So it's
basically use it.
automatic.
It's automated. Yeah.
Very good. So it's automated. It goes to the smart contract. The smart contract has it embedded in its soul to do that distribution. Great. So now that's great, and we're operating and we're running. There's obviously management companies that should be involved, or management parties, and with the responsibilities there that are clear. But here we come to the exit. So I own the property. Many of us wait until the exit happens, and then somebody gets a reward or a loss. Let's talk about the reward now. I'm sure we'll not have a problem distributing the loss. Let's talk about the reward. Somebody makes a profit, the property makes a profit of 10%. Does that get also distributed through the same smart contract that is automated that we talked about already?
We're yes,
Cool.
yes, essentially yes.
So it's simple. It gets distributed automatically. It comes back to the smart contract and automatically gets distributed. So here is a very important thing. How do we? So let's say Dennis holds more tokens than me. Who takes the decision to sell this property? Now, here it's amazing, guys, because it's so simple. That's why it's amazing. If we go back to the essence of a partnership between Dennis and myself, there should be rules written the minute we started the partnership, not at the end of it. When we started the partnership, and in the beginning, when that token was created, there has been rules put there, and those rules can include and should include how does the exit gets decided on and how does it happen. And it can include anything from uh, you know one person can decide and it can happen, who holds 20 tokens. It can include that 50% of the people in should decide. It can include that 90%. It can include that 100% of people are there agree. Now, who's initiating those? Who's initiating the sale request or the purchase request is the title holder. But who is deciding on them? It's whatever is mentioned there initially in the initial token. So the quality of your reading of those token rules or token general prospectus is very important. And it is similar to you uh, reading any agreement of partnership. The benefit here is that partners cannot have conflict. They don't need to know each other and they cannot have a conflict. And that is decided in a way mentioned when it's initiated, but it doesn't have a human being permitting or not it afterwards. It has a smart contract that has all of those. And this is why we call it a smart contract, probably. It's It, it's smart only in one way, isn't it? Whatever you embed in it, it can activate on its own. While if we have a paper contract, it needs a human being to activate it, an arbitrator or a court order or anything like that, isn't it?
Yes. Basically, smart contracts are usually predefined rules between multiple parties to be able to find a conclusion, right? So that there's no real decision making afterwards. It's really straightforward. What is the outcome, right? Yeah.
And guys, it's as simple as that. And I want to give you an example to how it runs. Let's say today you have 10 partners of a property. Those 10 partners, you are collecting as a manager, you are one of the partners, but you have the obligation, because you've agreed with them, to collect $5,000 a year, and you will manage that property. You collect those rents and you pay those parties, isn't it? Isn't this how it goes? Now, this month you wanted to delay the payment by 5 days. You can, but this is not what a smart contract can or would have the wish to do. It's a contract. Okay, it's a machine. It's not a human being with moods, wishes, hopes, and they don't get holidays and where they live. So that's very important. Is there anything that we missed, Dennis, in the whole process?
I think we quite well described the Blocksquare's kind of tokenization protocol, if you will. But so I would kind of stop it at this. Basically, we've covered the life cycle of a tokenized asset. Basically, we went from the initial structuring to a token sale, and then distributing revenues, and then at the end, the token buyback. So this is kind of the life cycle of an asset that is tokenized, a real estate asset that is tokenized.
I
Now,
hope that we helped you this time.
yeah,
And I believe that this session, because we've done it as simple as we can,
yeah.
and from my side, you can only hear simple, because all of those things that they understand, I understand nothing of. So,
But
what else do
Makram,
we want to talk about today, Dennis?
I think what we can also mention a bit is, what's our progress in terms of, for those who follow Blocksquare for some time. So this was essentially a session where we wanted to all the new people who kind of joined into Blocksquare's ecosystem recently, and just to go over the basics of how we tokenize real estate. Um, but I believe we are, I mean, what we're doing is we're really getting close to launching version 05 of Oceanpoint. And this is something that's going to bring some new momentum to those who stake BST in the governance pool, because it will incentivize them to get involved and support new teams who want to launch their marketplace. It's really democratizing decision making on who should receive Blocksquare's white label marketplace and operate on it. So for us as the core team, the main challenge here is on one side delivering the new version, and on the other side is finding interesting projects on the market who are um, looking to launch with us, or who are in the process of establishing a marketplace but maybe have not raised funds yet. So this way they don't need to raise funds to be able to launch a marketplace, because they will receive support from our
They
community.
can raise support.
Exactly.
So
That's
raise support. Cool.
great support. So I'm really excited to see what this brings, and what kind of um, I would say younger generation teams that might come into this, because it really addresses startups who want to get their name out, who want to get their brand out, and find an audience. And Blocksquare as an ecosystem is directly this audience that is interested in real estate and
So everyone in the governance staking BST in the governance pool is as if you're a VC, you're an incubator in a way or another, and you're supporting those teams, and you're deciding who to support and who not to support.
exactly, exactly,
Good.
and you're rewarded for supporting those teams um,
Succeed.
that succeeded. You're betting on them, basically, saying, "Hey, these guys are doing something really interesting."
Betting here, you're not betting anything financial, guys. You're just betting your decision making, and
Exactly.
hopefully something comes out of it.
Exactly. It's not like you're pledging. You're by pledging SBST. It doesn't mean that you're putting as your SBST at risk. You're just allocating it for fulfilling the licensing requirement by a marketplace operator.
Because remember, it's a DAO, and you are part of it, and you
Yes.
take decisions in it,
Exactly.
and that's how a DAO works. And we're all yet to probably live the whole dynamics of DAOs and how they operate, but it seems exciting, interesting, and much is yet to come. What have come over the past few weeks? There's so much happening. We don't have enough time sometimes to talk about everything that's happening.
Yes.
And I'm aware of the clock. We're already crossed the 30 minutes that we promised, guys. But let's in a minute say what's
All right.
happening.
So this week, actually tomorrow, is the first day of a new team member that we've signed a month ago, and I'm really excited about him joining our team. And now we can officially, also announce him here in this block chat. Um, Fergus Fergus Murphy. Um, this gentleman has spent his whole career in banking, in the banking industry, and not just in any position. He's been CEO of many banks, banks that we all know of, banks that we've all heard of, and he's been in top positions there. And a couple of months ago, he got in touch with us and we started talking. And these discussions led to other discussions. And Makram and I, we had the pleasure of talking with Fergus a couple of times. And we saw more and more that we really align in how we look at the world, and how we feel that where we feel that the world is going. And I'm really proud that he decided to take up on our offer and put his time, valuable time and effort, into leading Blocksquare's efforts in institutional banking adoption on a global level. So tomorrow is his officially first day with Blocksquare, but we've started collaborating before. I would say in a passive way, and I think this kind of opens up a new division, a new route in Blocksquare's market adoption. It kind of started with LBBW a bit, and with Fergus, I believe many more banks will take notice of what Blocksquare is doing, and we'll start we're starting at the top, because Fergus doesn't go through the entrance door. He actually gets with the chopper on top of the building and goes to the CEO of a bank and goes to the chief operating officer of a bank. So this is really interesting, and obviously um, he will be able to bring Blocksquare to the ears of the right people, but most importantly, educate them slowly first, and then hopefully collaborations will come out of it. So really excited about this. What are your thoughts, Makram, on Fergus?
You know what, guys? Do you see a pattern here? Do you see a small team growing a bit, then another bit, no hype, then another bit, then they start some marketing, then they start some business development, no hype. Then they start some branding. Then they start some additional development. Then they meet their targets. Then they promise new versions and they meet them. They promise new features and they get them. And then they go to the open market. And then you go institutional. And then you create a department for that approach. I'll stop here. Much is yet to come. I believe I'm so excited about Fergus joining. I'm so excited about all the hard work that every single person is putting, that Yuri is putting, that Daniel is putting, that Julia is putting, that every single individual in Blocksquare, the people even whom you don't see, probably you see us, you see Yuri, you see Julia, you see Daniel, you don't see David, you don't see Simon, you don't see many of the parties and people who, you don't see Victor, you don't see
You don't see
Peter,
Marco.
you don't see, you don't see many people, but
Exactly.
they're all working so hard and probably
You
harder than
don't see
us.
Elmedin. Because now that you started throwing out names, we need to
We
get
need to know
everybody,
all
right?
names, so go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. But then we're gonna get to an hour and
Exactly.
you're gonna
So
miss your appointment.
you have a growing team, guys. Everyone working hand in hand towards a goal that we're all excited and passionate about. And every day, the thought that was a thought a few years ago, that became a seed, that became a plant, that became a tree, that started giving some fruit, started getting more commercially viable. And today is an economy that is moving, and hopefully an economy of scale very soon. And that's what we want. Thank you all to all who supported at times where there was very little reasons to support, and they're reaping the benefit today, and hopefully they reap more benefit in the future. And thank you for all who are supporting now or who supported all the way through. And thank you for those who are coming back. I see many of those people who supported, disappeared, and then coming back, which is very important.
Yes.
That means that you believed in something, uh, hard times came, but now you see, oh gosh, I should have sticked. And thank you for coming back. And thank you for all the new supporters. And that's one of the reasons we've made this session. There's too many newcomers to our ecosystem. They don't have necessarily to know very little about tokenization or real estate. Some of them have been following the space for a very long time, but eventually decided that Blocksquare is the right entity to be following and to be part of. We're doing much on activities. I'll stop it here. Dennis, do you have any few last words?
No. That's
Guys, we're all through on activities in the coming few weeks. Dennis, you're in Berlin?
yes, I'm flying to Berlin this weekend. Coming back on Tuesday.
Dennis will be part of one of the biggest expos for tokenization in Europe,
Yes.
if not the
Yes.
biggest.
And one of the good parts as well is I just learned that our new PR agency, with which we started an agreement just not, well, a month ago, and we started still in the early part, but they are also partners of NBX in Berlin, and we'll be meeting with them, with the team that we've just had conversations over video. So that's also great. And meeting Ahim after a while. Also, Yura will be joining me in Berlin, and I believe Andy's in Berlin at that time as well. So Andy, aka Cryptovium, from our governance board, and who's taking really good care of our Twitter accounts, will be there. So it's going to be a fun couple of days. Yeah.
So for all the community members and all the other members of the team, those guys are going to have fun in Berlin and leaving us scattered all around. Again, I don't want to comment on it, but I leave the comments to you back in the section below. I'll be speaking at COP28 also in the coming few days on 6th. So we're quite active, a little bit, not much. Small conferences here and there. Yeah, COP28, is it the biggest? Probably. And NBX, yeah. Anyway, I'll leave the rest for you guys. It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you for everyone who's been part of Block Chat Energy tonight, and for all the nights that passed. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you, Makram. Bye.